It's
Sorry.
the same story, isn't it, that we saw last year? There was an instance there where they won the first two against Seattle, and I remember on opening day the enthusiasm wasn't quite there because they came back from this road trip at 4-6, and even 4-6 was flattering. It seems they played worse than a 4-6 team on that trip, and yet there they go and win opening day, and then they come back in the second game and they look reasonably well, and the pitching is as good as predicted. But I don't know. This team is amazing. They frustrate you to no end because it appears they've got a lineup that could potentially do some damage and force their way back into a playoff position at the end of the year. But hard to tell these days.
Let me tell you the problem I see.
Mm-hmm.
We are all old enough. We have all seen many, many great baseball teams.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few things that we saw that were just obvious. And that is you could go to the ballpark and almost every day you knew what the lineup was going to be. And almost every day was the same. And it doesn't matter what team it was, whether it was the Blue Jays or somebody else. Even on not so good teams, the lineup was the same every day. And we don't have that in Toronto right now. And that is deliberate. It's not by accident in many respects. I understand, injuries will cause change, but the Blue Jays, their philosophy is they decide daily who is going to play and who's going to play where. It's not health reasons. It's philosophical. And I disagree with that fundamentally. I wonder what you think.
What's confusing that situation right now, Bob, is that if you were to take any of the major offensive categories right now and go from top to bottom, most of their most productive hitters right now are guys who don't play every day. So I'm talking about people like Davis Schneider, who's never guaranteed a spot in the lineup every day, and Cavan Biggio, who's never guaranteed a spot in the lineup every day,
Yep.
and Ernie Clement. All of your bottom hitters right now, from let's say an on base plus slugging percentage, are names like Dalton Varsho and George Springer and Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro Kirk, who leads the team in RBIs, but I think he's hitting something like $140. So
Yeah.
what's happened, and this is a carryover, as you guys know from last year, is all of the players that are supposed to be leading the way, the guy getting $150 million, for example, at the top of the order, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who hit a very important home run yesterday, yes, but is hitting somewhere around 200 if we dig out that old batting average statistic. Those are the guys that aren't, quote unquote, doing their jobs. So I think the manager at this point has no choice but to find ways of inserting Davis Schneider, Ernie Clement, Cavan Biggio, these guys who don't play every day, and yet when they do play, seem to come up with big hits.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Who is the third baseman for the Blue Jays?
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who
really? How many games has he started there?
I off the top of my head, I don't know, but not every one. And oddly, he's come around in the last 3 or 4 days. I think he sits fourth in OPS on this team. Fourth.
Yeah. But
ahead of Vladdy.
We know that hitting is not his forte.
No, and it's never going to be.
Who is the second baseman? Who is the second baseman for this team?
I don't know. Cavan Biggio?
Right? He's the best, I think.
Well, by the way,
every day.
By the way, who finished at second base yesterday? IKF finished at second base yesterday.
Was it yesterday? He certainly did the day before.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the problem. You don't know who's going to play where.